Hello everybody. Let's go over the settings page for random AI prompts. So the settings page covers the default settings that pretty much apply to everything. In my program, it's 100% possible to not even specify a prompt. And if you don't specify a prompt, what it's going to do is it's going to pull from the default prompt. The default prompt, #randoms, if you remember in the last video, that means that it is a dynamic prompt, and in this case, it basically just assembles, think like up to 10 or so random keywords, just throws them together and hopes for the best. And believe it or not, it can actually produce some pretty interesting results. I encourage you to try it. The next thing is a negative prompt. In general, I find a lot of times you just don't need to change this that often. In my program, you can actually have presets which contain alternate negative prompts. And so the general workflow that I recommend is to set the negative prompt that you want for everything. And then if you want to override it, you can do so overriding the whole negative prompt or just using a preset. The negative prompt I provide you is pretty good for most things. You generally don't need anything else. Target AI, my program does not have to target Stable Diffusion. My program can actually target Midjourney or Melville AI. It will give you a list of prompts that you can copy and paste into programs like Midjourney and Melville AI. So generate images. If you want to use my program mainly for generating prompts and not images, you would uncheck that. By default, obviously, most people are going to be interested in using my program to connect to Stable Diffusion and generate images. Upscale images means that it will automatically upscale every single image that it makes. Prompts, again, these are the defaults. How many random prompts do you want generated and sent to Stable Diffusion, and how many images per prompt? When you generate a random prompt and you want to automatically get Stable Diffusion to make images for that random prompt, how many images do you want? By default, it's set to generate one random prompt and one image for that prompt. Keyword setting. When you're asking for a random amount of keywords, this is what it will do. It will generate 5 to 7 keywords. Here, there is a chance, I think like a 50% chance, that it will automatically add FX keywords. These can add extra variation to the image and sometimes make it look pretty creative or original or interesting. The same goes for the artist. If you use the artist keyword, the artist dynamic prompt, will any artist actually print out, or will it be an empty space? And this is what this does. Auto add artist is exactly the same as auto add FX. There is a 50% chance at the end of your prompt it will automatically add artists. When you are inserting artists, how many artists do you want to insert? When pulling from lists, by default, what it's going to do, say you have a small list and you don't want duplicates. By default, every list entry is guaranteed to be unique unless it runs out of list entries for that particular prompt. And then on the next prompt, the list entries kind of start over as to what's unique. So you can change this. You can have every list entry not guaranteed to be unique, in which case you might get duplicate. If you ask for a color, you might get the same color twice. You can also have it guaranteed to be unique across all prompts in that whole batch, not just a single prompt. The default keyword and default artist list is pretty important. The default keyword list, when you were asking my program to insert random keywords, where is it going to get these random keywords from? You can actually see all these lists. An option you have is just to have a completely random list. Prompt sort is actually a little bit complicated, and I definitely want to make a separate video on that. Keyword mingling. My program is all about randomization and variation. This is one set of variations that it can do. For each list item, there is a 25% chance by default that it will opt to do something extra with this list item. And there's a 25% chance it will opt to add an extra level to this list item. And this is explained below. So for example, keyword emphasizing. Keyword emphasizing is when it adds a random amount of emphasis or a random amount of de-emphasis. So you can see right here, you can enable this at all. You can set the max levels. How many maximum number of emphasis or de-emphasis will it use? By default, it's a maximum of 3 levels. And this is again where the level checks come in. So there is a 25%, it will gain an extra level of emphasis or de-emphasis if it's selected for emphasis. Now, emphasizing is supported across all the target AIs. There is a 25% chance that it will be selected for de-emphasis, which means that there is a 75% chance it will be selected for emphasis over de-emphasis. Keyword editing, this is only available for Stable Diffusion. This will automatically not even be used if you're not targeting Stable Diffusion. This keyword editing is probably one of my favorite little features because it says in a certain number of steps, I want you to replace this keyword with another keyword. There's 3 types of keywords editing. Replace a keyword with another keyword. Mid-generation, you can swap a keyword in mid-generation, or you can swap a keyword out mid-generation. And the number of steps will determine what steps during generation should it do this swapping in or out or replacing. The default sampler is Euler, and I'll make a separate video on the reason why. Euler just works for just about everything. Euler works extremely fast. So I find that if you are making images that is above step 4, say step 7 or step 10, you're not going to see any difference at all with Euler. I find the only times you're going to notice keyword editing is between steps 2 and steps 4, which is why I already have that set up for you. Keyword alternating is another advanced feature. It's only available, again, for Stable Diffusion. This will be entirely ignored for any other target AI. Keyword alternating will take a certain number of keywords on every step, alternates to the next. So you might have the color red, step 1, color blue, step 2, color yellow, step 3, color red, step 4. You see how it's starting over? And it just goes down that list over and over and over. I have the maximum number of keywords too. This goes back to the level chance. So there is a 25% chance that it will go to the next level and add an extra alternating keyword. Image settings, these are pretty straightforward. Sampler, Euler, highly recommended. It works really good for one-click animation, works really good for generation, it works really good for the keyword editing. I just recommend to keep Euler. Steps and image width, image height, these are all the, the defaults. I will say image width and image height will automatically convert to multiple of 64, which is what Stable Diffusion requires. So it will actually help you round up or down increments of 64. All the other stuff, restore detail, high-res detail, CFGC, pretty self-explanatory. Animation, they are in milliseconds. I find after a lot of experimenting that a delay of 200 milliseconds between each frame is just optimal. What frames do you want to render by default? I found that a start frame of 1 with a total frames of 5. What I like to do just small batches, and if I really want to do a big frame count, I can increase that number. Upscale settings. When you are selecting to upscale, do you want to save the original image beforehand? I recommend to definitely have this enabled. Do you want to upscale to a specific resolution? Or do you want to upscale by a %? Do you want to auto crop the image if you're upscaling to a resolution? And do you want to restore faces afterwards? I recommend to leave that unchecked. You do have control over the upscaler 1, 2, and the balance between them. I recommend to use ESRGON 4X. And if you're doing anime, 4X 6B anime. This is the face restore specifically for upscaling. Advanced settings. You can connect to other Stable Diffusion servers. You do not have to connect to one locally. This is the web interface port that this server runs on, and this is the progress port. The progress port is when it's in the middle of a generation, it will open a special progress that you can monitor progress on. Generally don't need to change these. These are the prompt modules. I'm going to make a video on them. They're pretty advanced. They generally don't ever need to be changed. These are simply just folder paths for like your image files, your list files, expansion files, etc. This is pretty much all of the settings. A lot of these, I will say this is just pretty finely tuned. It works right out of the box. You generally don't need to change anything. The only thing that I would recommend changing is if you're making a lot of anime images by default, to change the keyword and artist list to the anime list. Apart from that, there's not really anything else that you need to change unless you just have your own preferences and want to set global defaults. I hope you found this video enjoyable, and thanks for watching. Bye.